world of conflict, there's an island sanctuary that seems the last place anyone on Earth would want to take on. There's no oil to covet, nothing to plunder. Fiji is a mere speck in global politics. This is also a place where tradition means everything. Where the fighting men of the tribes have come together in a formidable modern-day force. Without enemies from the outside, the menace has always come from within.
The greatest challenge I have is ensuring that my men's loyalty don't go anywhere else.
For many in this country, Fiji is the army, and the army is Fiji. It's a cornerstone of the society. Just as the tribes give identity to indigenous people, so the army defines their stature. The military is a job, a family, and a way of life. In a school ground in Lautoka, the students of Natabua High School are on parade. 900 boys and girls here are in the Army Cadets. This is their passing out ceremony.
Okay, son, you're the platoon sergeant. Okay, get the boys in, get them in, inspect your boys. Okay, Miss Journal.
15-year-old Savanatha Delana is getting a last-minute pep talk from his father.
Wrinkles. Go through your inspection if you have enough time. Otherwise, check them into the classrooms now. Check the dress. Yes, what? Yes, sir. Yeah, that's better.
Savanatha has no choice but to be here. Cadet training is compulsory in Fiji, and there's a strong military tradition in his family. In part, a tradition inherited from the British, the colonial power here until 1970.
I learned plenty of things like the NCOs, and it teaches me to listen to higher power when I grow up. I listen to my boss, listen to commands.
The most important is love.
A few hours later, Savanatha's father is at it again, this time with even more passion.
Look at the person sitting there beside you and tell him, have faith in me.
With religious zeal, Corporal Emosi Delana is revving some grown-up soldiers, the Army rugby team.
We will overcome that mountain. We will conquer that mountain through our love for each other and our love for our enemies. And that is the Public Works Department team that we are going to play against today.
In this highly structured society, discipline and loyalty are the virtues of a modern holy trinity. The Green Tribe, the Church, and rugby.
We have values in the military. A dedication to duty, a will to win, and family, integrity, teamwork, courage. All these are values that we look at, something that we always do in the military.
Those values have taken Fiji's finest around the world. For a quarter of a century, they've staked a reputation as feared but respected professional soldiers. The nation's most famous export is its UN peacekeepers. They've served everywhere from the Sinai to the Solomons to Iraq.
In East Timor, we got so close to the people. In Lebanon, same thing. We get very close to the people. There's something about us Fijians is we care a lot. We care for each other.
Not only has Fiji's military grown in international stature, but it's become an economic force as well. Sending their UN wages home has helped transform the military into Fiji's biggest industry after tourism and sugar. Another major source of cash comes from the remittances of another 3,000 Fijians serving in the British Army. And now private military contractors are muscling in on this lucrative labour pool, luring soldiers out of uniform with promises of big money. Colonel Saviusa Ravachi no longer serves in the army, neither do these men who obey his orders.
Wula, welcome home.
They and 2,000 other compatriots have joined private companies providing security in Iraq, where the best can earn several $100s a day, serious money in anyone's language.
I'm looking for men who have served in the military. In Iraq, they provide security for the local contractors who are building infrastructures for the government. I think it's a pay that drives them, and also the excitement of going to another country. As probably you've seen in Fiji, there's not much work here for them. Yeah, how was the tour, Eric?
I enjoyed the tour.
Eric Krishnan is back for a 4-week break to see his family.
Really interesting to the situation on the ground in Baghdad. It excites you every day and keeps you going.
But any gaps in the ranks are rapidly filled. In the villages, there's an endless supply of recruits for the real army, and this is the man they serve under.
Trevor Borman from the ABC Foreign Correspondent Programme.
Good morning. I understand we have an interview on Tuesday.
Yes.
Commodore Frank Bainimarama is one of the most powerful men in this country. A Navy officer commanding a force dominated by the army, he's not about to let anyone undermine him or his authority.
Why then do you need such a big military?
I don't know what you mean by big military.
Well, there are 800,000 people or more in Fiji, and you have, by proportion, quite a large army, about 3,500 soldiers.
Oh, that's large.
It is large. So why do you need a large army?
Well, one of the past we've had a lot of deployments.
But all is not well in paradise. It's been that way for several years. There's something that gnaws at the heart of some indigenous Fijians. It's all about sharing their lives and sharing this nation with that other group here, the Indians. And as you might expect, it's a situation the army just can't keep out of. Indo-Fijians arrived as indentured labourers in the 19th century, and until a few years ago, outnumbered indigenous people. But thousands fled after 2 military coups in 1987, triggered by fears that ethnic Indians were dominating society. Fiji's constitution guarantees indigenous people ownership of most of the land. But there are still those here who'll tell you the Indians are taking over. It's a paranoia that drives the ambitions of nationalists like Rapati Sivo.
Being an indigenous, that is just, to me, that's a divine race from God, okay? A Rotuman, a Chinese, those separation, that's a divine separation from God.
Get him off, man! It was the same anti-Indian sentiment that helped drive businessman George Speight through the gates of the Fijian Parliament in May 2000.
Right, I've executed the coup. I've toppled the government. I detained their members. And I made it very clear, that I have a clear objective in mind. I'm not going to sway from it.
He and his gang of gunmen held the parliament and its Indo-Fijian Prime Minister captive for several weeks. Taken hostage too was Health Minister Lavenia Padarath.
This is where we were held for the 37 days. The experience was dreadful, frightening experience. I wouldn't like to go over it again, I hope. Our men slept exactly where they sat during the parliament session, just below it. And the women chose to go up into the public gallery. We pushed some of the chairs out to make room, and we were on the floor.
I have, with much reluctance, assumed executive authority of the country and henceforth declared martial law.
It was Commodore Frank Bainimarama who took control, negotiating a new government and finally arresting George Speight. But that wasn't the end of it. A few months later, renegade soldiers staged a mutiny at Queen Elizabeth Barracks. 4 loyalist soldiers were killed and 4 rebels were overpowered and beaten to death by Bainimarama's men. The mutineers were coming after their commander. From that moment, it became personal.
For one thing, George Speight is not going to be let out of jail. That's not going to happen.
The memories of the 2000 coup are still fresh in the mind of the commander, and for a very good reason. This month, Fiji's parliament may pass an act of reconciliation that could lead to amnesty for George Speight and the other conspirators.
If George Speight was let out because of this bill, it'll be 2000 all over again.
It's all about forgiveness and moving on. But those less charitable see it as a cynical attempt by the government to garner support from the Speight camp before next year's elections.
We think it's just a ruse by the government of the day to release people that were involved in parliament who were friends of theirs so they can get the Fijian vote.
The commander's game plan to keep George Speight behind bars is all the talk of Fiji. He's hinted that if Speight is released, he'll overthrow the government and declare martial law. The 2000 coup breaker would become coup maker. The game would turn ugly.
It's divided the whole of the country. It's divided races, it's divided families, it's divided friends, because it reminds us of the events of 2000.
And if there's any doubt that Fiji's neighbours are worried, just look at who's coming to see him.
You know each other, right? Yes. Very well. We don't want to see amnesties granted to the central figures in the 2000 coup. But I certainly at the same time don't want to see the military just once more seize control of the country.
Despite the diplomatic niceties for the cameras, Australian Foreign Minister Alexander Downer delivers a blunt warning to the army. Stay out of politics.
I think it'll destroy Fiji if that happens. I think if there's another coup in Fiji, the economy will completely collapse. It's the last thing this country wants.
But there is another force in this country. It's the only real counterbalance to Fiji's military tribe. On a Saturday night in Suva, it's the only authority most Fijians would ever look towards to protect them and maintain law and order.
Hey, bro, just off it, bro. You know what? You're waiting for me.
Mind the language, sir.
Indo-Fijians make up only 2% of the army, but they comprise more than a third of the police service.
Brother, I'm cautioning you. I'm warning you. This is the second time I'm warning you. Third time I won't.
This force has recruited an Australian federal police officer as its commander. And as if Andrew Hughes isn't busy enough combating everyday crime, he also has the massive and the politically delicate job of cleaning up from the events of 5 years ago.
We have charged over 2,500 people for various offences, up to and including the second highest office holder in the land in the former Vice President, Deputy Speaker, Cabinet Ministers, military, police. So, we haven't in any sense edited out who we shouldn't charge.
As Fiji lurches towards another potential crisis, the Commissioner has called for everyone to calm down and take a deep breath.
Look, we're not going to confront the military. There's no way that my men and women would be, morally in a position to do it, but also simply from the logistical point of view and the capacity of the police to offer any form of resistance to the military.
Clear weapons.
The bottom line is that this is a small nation with a big army, and its commander has a reputation for having his way.
Is it true, though, that in negotiating for an extension of your tenure, you waved a pistol around in the Home Affairs Office?
You're not going to come up with these questions. What are you talking about? Who gave you this question?
Well, these are things that have been written about in the media, though, sir.
They all lie. So I don't see any reason why you should come up with these questions now when you had totally... All of a sudden you came up with a question about me waving pistol around the place.
No, but sir...
I've never waved pistol at anybody.
It's good that you...
Thank you. Can you now leave? Thank you very much.
Right!
In their formative years, another group of Fijian cadets have had their first taste of military life.
But I believe the thing about us is we have so much pride in our country. It's the same goods. It's in the blood.
The Green Tribe marches on, firm in the belief that it's the self-anointed guardian of the national interest, whatever that may be. But many watching the passing parade fear the army may drag them into a world of chaos and anarchy.